What exactly?
A lot of food that I didn't eat. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, when I normally teach, I walk through the aisles, you know. I know we're all adults, but when you're teaching children, don't stand in one place. Don't let your feet be in cement, you know. Move, okay? It makes it more interesting for the children. You will have better discipline and control in your classroom if you're walking around, you know. And when somebody's not doing something like they're supposed to, you look at their eyes, and the whole time you're walking, you're looking at them.
Intimidating.
And if that doesn't work, you can continue to teach, but just place your hand on their shoulder. Okay? If that doesn't work, take them by the hand and they follow you. Let me tell you, they don't want to do this. Okay?
Sure. You know where the trouble's coming from?
Yes, I do. Excuse me. All right, let's look at the building blocks or foundation stones of our faith. Because we're limited in time, I went ahead and put this on the board already. I usually build it, okay? There are three foundational building stones in our children's early 5 to 6 years, from birth on up, okay? So the first one, and by the way, they learn all these things primarily through their relationship with their parents. But you need to know this so that they're going to learn this through your relationship with them. Kids learn to have a relationship with God through their relationship with parents and teachers. Anybody have a mirror? Nope. No mirror? Yeah, that'll work. All right. I've got a mirror here. Take a look. What do you see in there?
Not bad looking guy.
A good looking guy.
Sure.
So what do you see in there?
Me, myself, and I.
Yes. How about you? What do you see?
See that?
Okay. What do you see, darling? Yes. Okay. Now, thank you for the mirror. Nobody has more power, more authority, more influence, more time than you, the parent, to mold and shape your life in a positive way, to cause them to grow up to be strong, healthy believer. But on the flip side of that, no, and this is for teachers too, but nobody but you, the parent and the teacher, has more power, more influence, more time, more authority to influence your children in a negative way and send them down the wrong path instead of the right path. Okay? And this happens through their relationship with you. And how does this happen? In the first 18 months of a child's life, most of the time, they're with you. They start out being in your arm as a little baby. And through their relationship with you, they hear your heartbeat, they see your smile or your frown, they hear the sound and the tone of your voice. And if your relationship with them makes them feel safe, comfortable, then they're going to have faithfulness as their foundation stone, because you're faithful to take care of their needs. But if they're crying and you just ignore them and you don't see why they're crying, try to take care of them, then they're not going to develop trust. Okay? When you are faithful to them to take care of their needs, they're going to develop trust. Okay? But if you're not, what's the opposite? Distrust, not trusting other people, being afraid of other people. When I was a little baby, my mom said that she thought that I hated her from the time I was a baby. And I said, how does a baby hate? Later, she said that when I was needing a babysitter, they could never leave me with a girl. Most babysitters are girls. They always had to have a male babysitter for me. And later on, I'm thinking about this, and God revealed to me that the reason why she felt that I hated her or rejected her as a child is my dad had a very fun-loving, warm, loving person. He was phlegmatic and sanguine, if you're into personality stuff. And so when he held me, I felt happy. I felt safe. I felt I was daddy's little girl. Are you with me? And so I developed trust with him. But my mom's personality was the exact opposite. She is choleric and melancholy. These are, on the one side, sanguine, phlegmatic, that's people. On the other side, choleric and melancholy, these are focused on work. They're very strict. The choleric is very strict. The melancholy is into details, wanting everything to be perfect. Okay? They can be very hard on themselves when they make a mistake, or somebody else makes a mistake. So, in the arms of my dad, because he was fun-loving and joyful, I felt good. In the arms of my mother, who was very uptight, I felt uncomfortable. Didn't hate her, I just cried and squirmed. And so when they wanted to have a woman babysitter, my relationship with my mom was uncomfortable, and we judge every new relationship by these first relationships with our parents. Remember law number 4? A bridge from something you know to the next thing. Okay? So everything we experience in life after our experience with our parents or grandparents, we compare it to that. Even, it's subconscious, we don't even know it. So I didn't feel comfortable with my mom, so I saw another woman, had a high voice, had long hair, smooth skin, and I thought, no, I don't want that. I hear a deep voice, fun-loving, comfortable, rough skin. You know, babies learn by touching and feeling and all that. You know, you're all parents. I felt comfortable. She felt rejected, unfortunately. But when you are faithful to take care of all the child's needs timely, okay? Like we did immediately, then the child trusts you. He develops trust, okay? And then he's going to learn to trust God. If mom and dad showed him faithfulness, were faithful to take care of his needs, and he developed trust. If they're not faithful, the child can develop distrust or even fear. Okay? And then that's the relationship they're going to think about when they are in your Sunday school class and you're teaching them about God. You probably have seen kids like that. Some very comfortable, others are a little uptight. Okay? All right, so that's the first foundation stone of our faith. God is faithful. Okay? That's what we learn. Our parents showed us faithfulness, so we can believe that God is faithful. We can trust Him. The next stage, 18 months to 3 years. What do we call that period? Yeah, toddlers, but what else? The terrible twos, okay? Because now they're mobile, okay? Now, before, we had everything under control. And even when they started to go around, they would be okay for a minute and they're crying. They want you to pick them back up again. Okay? It's hold them down, back hold them up and down. Okay? You still have some control. But man, when they become mobile, they are into everything. They're autonomous. They're able to do things for themselves. They don't have the knowledge to understand that eating something other than what mom gives them might be really bad. So you have to lock your cabinets up. You can't let them get in to your laundry soap or your dish soap and stuff like that. The pods that we use now, kids see it as candy. You know, so you have to be really careful. Now, there was a time when kids were eating those, teenagers. What in the world would you do? I mean, it's nasty. Taste it. But, you know, we do stupid things when we're teenagers. By the way, this time of the terrible twos is like junior high kids. Okay? Same thing. They want to do things themselves. They want to be on their own. They're not wanting to be held all the time. Kids don't want to be treated like children. They want to do things on their own, but they don't have all the knowledge, and so they make mistakes and they come running back for help. Okay? Teenagers and terrible twos. There's a lot alike. If you're a parent, and you have older kids, you know that. Like the old man in the back has older boys. No. So what the foundation stone for the terrible twos is unconditional love. Okay? So nie bezosłowna любовь. Okay? You love them no matter what they do. And it's not easy all the time. But because they get into things, they make lots of mistakes. Now instead of just sitting and holding the baby, or the baby has a time to sleep, now they're running around and you're chasing after them. You know, they're really fast. And so it's hard sometimes to love them unconditionally. Not everybody even understands how to love unconditionally. And so some people call children bad or good, label them that. You know, that's why I talked about, you say your behavior's bad, not you are bad. And so they don't feel loved when you do that. Or they love you when you're doing the right thing, but they're angry at you when you're doing the wrong thing. So when you discipline, you do need to discipline, you have to do it in love. You have to talk to them about why you're disciplining, briefly, in little words that they can understand. You can say, what did you do that made mommy have to come and discipline you? Don't ask them why they did it. They don't know why they did it. Okay? Ask them, what did you do? They can answer that, but not a why. We don't even know why we do things sometimes. Okay? So when you are working with the toddlers, the little kids, you have to show them unconditional love. So yes, you have to discipline, but you do it in love. You remind them that you still love them, that you just don't like what they did. Okay? Big difference. If you show them unconditional love, they will become autonomous. Okay? Meaning that they feel good about themselves and feel like, okay, I can do this, I can have some self-control, I can make right choices. They're developing this. But if you are always labeling them bad or good, and it's conditional love, then they become unsure. They don't feel that they can do things right because it's never good enough for some parents. And they've been labeled bad, and so they don't feel like they can do things themselves. Okay? Instead of developing self-control and feeling good about themselves, they sometimes feel inferior or feel like I can't do anything right. And this is the beginning of it. It can develop into much bigger as they're growing up. Okay? Now, the last stage, which typically happens between 3 and 6 years old, 3 to 5 and 6, before they go to school, this is when the building block is grace and forgiveness. Okay? That's what God does for us. He knows that we're not perfect, we make mistakes, so He gives us grace and He forgives us. Of course, we have to learn to ask for it, and that's what teachers and parents do. And if you do that, then they learn to take initiative. Okay? They feel good about themselves enough that they can try something new. They can do something that they may not have done and not be afraid to make a mistake. Because when they were little, when they made a mistake, their parents showed them grace and forgiveness. Grace says, she's a child. She's not an adult. She hasn't learned everything that I've learned. I'm 20, 30, whatever. She's just a little girl, so of course she's going to make mistakes. Or a little boy. So I'm going to give them grace because they're a child and understand that they haven't learned to do things right. And I'm going to forgive them. I'm going to teach them that God has grace. Grace is bigger than, I believe, than any mistake we could ever make, because God shows us grace and forgives us. And I learned that when I went skydiving. God gave me grace and miraculously healed me. I would have died. That was a dumb thing to do. Really big mistake. But God gave me grace. Okay. Now, if you don't show grace and forgiveness, then the child doesn't learn initiative. Now, when I worked in the former Soviet Union and in Russia and all the republics, I noticed so many adults, teachers, who didn't take initiative. I mean, it was a huge amount of people. And then I started studying the culture, and I realized that discipline mostly, certainly in the schools, was shaming. Yep. And when you're shamed all the time, it's hard to take initiative. Because if you know you might not do it perfectly, and then you're going to be shamed again. Shaming somebody, that hurts that person deeply. Belittling somebody. Okay, now, when a child becomes trying to look at it, we've done the first three building blocks, which to me are the most important, because it affects everything else in your emotional, spiritual development. The next age, 6 to 12, this stone they're industrious. You know, suddenly they go to school and they're like, oh, I can do this. I can color, I can draw, I'm learning to count, I'm learning to add and subtract. Okay? They're learning all these things and they're enjoying it because they feel like, look what I can do. Okay? If the teachers and parents value and accept the child, because not everybody is good in the same things. Some people can draw, some people don't. Some people can sing, some people can't. Some people are good at math and others aren't. I was very slow in reading and felt very inferior to my brothers because I didn't learn to read with phonics. And so it was really hard for me. I can read great now, but at the time, it was really hard. I was taught phonics later, when I was, I think, in 6th grade. They realized they had made the mistake. but it was so difficult in sixth grade. It would have been easy when I was younger. Okay? All right, now, if your teacher or parent is judgmental and comparing you, why can't you do math like your brother? We've all experienced that. Why can't you read like your older sister? She loves to read. You don't compare your kids to one another unless you want them to have an inferiority complex. A lot of people grow up and they feel inferior all the time because during this time period you've been compared to an older sister, an older brother. When I was your age, I liked to read. When I was a teenager and I was a swimmer, and our team was the first team from my high school to ever win a regional event, and they won it because of me. Everybody swam, but it came down to my race, and the other swimmer on the other team was faster than me. I had never come close to her time before. But in that event, I needed it, I guess more than she did, and I out-touched her. I beat her. Everybody jumped into the pool, they're pulling me out of the water, and they're hugging me, and the stands, the bleachers were empty. Parents, everybody came down and hugging me. One person was still sitting up in the stands, my mother. She comes up at the very last minute. Can you come? So why don't you come? Stand right there. So my mother comes up. Remember, we won the swim meet. We won the regional event. It was a big deal, half of the state, because I won my race. And I beat somebody who normally was 5 seconds faster than me. That's a lot, okay? And my mom comes up, stays about this far away, and she leans over and kisses me on the cheek. No hug, no anything. And she says, well, that was nice. Nice? I won the race. But why don't you swim like freestyle like Becky swims? I swam the breaststroke. It deflated me. I felt on top of the world, and with that little comparison, that little comment, thank you. Be careful with your words. We know what the Bible says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. In James, he says, out of the same fountain flows evil and sweet, or sour and sweet, salty and sweet, blessing and cursing. My brother, and that ought not to be said. So be very careful about how you speak to your kids. If you're critical to a child, they become critical as an adult. If you're loving to a child, they're going to grow up to be loving. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so any questions? All right, I have another outline, or a drawing. Can somebody erase this really quickly for me? Here. Thank you. Okay, so where is my friend that was the little Surge?
Surge isn't here.
Okay,
Gus is here.
Gus, so we're gonna have, this is little Gus here.
That was Surge.
Well, Surge isn't here.
Wow, I mean, it's so close to being Picasso.
So this is Surge as a little baby, okay? He's born, created by God in God's image, okay? And if his parents are faithful and love him unconditionally, show him grace and forgiveness, and don't compare him to others, then his life is going to go into a positive way, and little Gus is going to be so happy. Yay. Okay? How do you look, Gus? What do you think?
Are you happy?
Good smile.
Okay. But if you do not take care of those building blocks, okay, instead of developing trust, self-control, or autonomy, that's not autonomy. All right. A-U-T. Okay. And grace, forgiveness, so he can take initiative. If you're not doing those building blocks, then instead of trust, autonomy, initiative, then his life goes in the opposite direction. And normally, once it starts going down, it continues to go down. Okay? Now you can stop that by breaking that cycle. You can repent if you're a parent and ask for forgiveness. But if you don't do anything, poor little Gus.
Have a body?
Oh, the body. The body, he feels so small and unimportant. I always pick on, usually it's the boys I pick on because I had all brothers. So it goes down, and so instead of trusting people, he has distrust. Instead of feeling love, unconditional love, and develop autonomy, he feels it's never insecure, never good enough. Waiting to be judged, afraid, low self-esteem. I'm emphasizing this. Yeah. Let's just say low self-esteem. I should have an assistant who writes it. You can't read. All right. Okay. Now, if you're not showing grace and forgiveness, instead of initiative, they feel shame and fear of making mistakes.
There we go.
What is it, Steve?
Stay.
Steve.
You cannot spell machine.
And if you are comparing the child during his early school years, elementary school, what's going to happen? He's going to feel inferior, develop inferiority complex. Now, I can tell you that I went down the other way, not up. Okay? And I really didn't find healing until I got saved in Jerusalem. And I was 25 when that happened, turned 26 right afterwards. But still, I didn't fully understand everything. And I had a really terrible relationship with my mother. She felt I rejected her. I felt like she rejected me. It's called the rejection syndrome or cycle. And I read books. I did all kinds of self-help things and everything. I was packing to go back to Russia, and I had been at my mom's house visiting, and she said, "Oh, Ann Hayes gave this to you." Who's Ann Hayes? Well, that's the pastor's wife when you were born. How did I remember that? You know. And so she gives me this card, and it just is a birth announcement. And I thought nothing of it. And then later, I'm changing purses of which purse I'm going to take overseas compared to what I'm using here in the States. Because I didn't, I take a very simple, not ostentatious purse because I don't want to get anything stolen. Okay. And so I change in the purse, and now I see this little envelope. What is this? And this time when I pulled it out, I saw the handwriting on the back. My mother had written to Anne, the pastor's wife, and this is what she wrote. "Dear Anne, well, I finally have my baby girl. She has her daddy's eyes. I can't wait to get her home and dress her in all frilly things. I'm so happy." I was like 40. And it was the first time that I realized that my mom really did love me. She wasn't a person that said it. I never heard her say, "I love you." She didn't express her love in her words. Okay? I had a prophecy, when I was like 30 and I was principal of a Christian school, and And it was, God is going to restore the years that the cankerworm stole. I never understood what that was. But when I was in the 90s and I had been living in Russia at that time, and God healed the relationship between me and my mom. It turns out that she was bipolar. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a mental illness. And there's different types of bipolar, but most of them, they are very caustic with their words. They will say something negative, be it yell it out or blurt it out, and not even say anything about it. That's just part of the illness. And God supernaturally healed our relationship. And she died January of 2012. I was able to be with her for the last a couple of years of her life. I moved up there. I was with her when she died. I had worship music on, and I'm hugging her and sobbing and asking her to forgive me, and you know, my brothers all left her, wouldn't have anything to do with her either, and she died in peace, knowing that I loved her and all was well. You know, thankfully for God to heal our relationship. Turns out bipolar is a genetic disease, and it came in my mom's family. Every one of my brothers, 4 brothers, are bipolar. I'm the only one in the family that's not bipolar. I used to think and worry that I was going to go crazy or something. Couldn't explain it. I just felt that way. And God healed me of that. And completely. And I went to a psychiatrist afterwards because I was in chronic pain, and my pastor sent me to an elder who's a psychiatrist to see what's going on, what's wrong. And he heard my whole family story and what I was going in, and he said, "There's nothing wrong with you at all. You're in pain. And pain is very difficult, chronic pain that never goes away." And so I have proof that I'm not bipolar. I mean, God did that for me, you know. And I was able to say that to my older brother, that I have proof that I'm not bipolar, you know. And he said, "You're the only one in the family. It's a genetic thing. That's amazing." So God is faithful. Even if somebody was critical in your family when you were growing up, even if those building blocks were not established in your home. Is this on? Yeah. Okay. God can supernaturally reach in to you, heal your emotions, heal you from any mental illness or anything that has happened in your life, and take you from going in the wrong direction and put you back on the right track. He can get you to the place where he restores your trust in him and other people. He gives you feeling that good about yourself, even when you make mistakes. That you have self-control. You can do things yourself. he can put that building block of grace and forgiveness in your life and develop that initiative that wasn't there. I think that one of the main reasons that most Russian people that I worked with, well, Russian, Ukrainian, everything else, didn't take initiative is because they were shamed. I went to a class in a school, and I'm visiting different classrooms. And in one class, the teacher has something on her desk of clay that people are to mold the clay and shape it into the exact thing that she had on the desk. When I come back later, I looked at the kids that were sitting there with their hands folded. Every single desk had an exact likeness of that there. If you go into a kindergarten class or first grade class, usually in kindergarten they play with clay, you will see all kinds of strange things that the kids will have on their desk. And the teacher is saying, "My, how wonderful, what is that?" I mean, they have no idea what it is, but the child does. But the teacher, how wonderful, how beautiful that is. How creative it is. Huh?
Plasticine.
Okay. And we're free to mold and shape and be creative. Okay? And no one's going to shame us for it. So we take initiative. So, in closing, can I pray for you?
Yes. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the people that are in ministry, especially children's ministry, they come across a lot of shame for taking initiative. How do we combat that?
Well, as a teacher, you pray, ask God to heal your children and give you wisdom of how you're going to help that child not feel shame and be able to take initiative. Okay? You pray and ask God to convict the parent, or maybe it was another teacher that was critical or whatever, and pray for healing. Okay? God healed me of all of that. I was on that bottom road. So God can heal anybody. Amen? Yes.
Is there an appropriate place for shame though?
No. I don't think so.
Not like to shame somebody, but to feel shame yourself.
Wait to shame.
Not to feel shame yourself.
And to feel ashamed yourself, maybe embarrassed, or when you've done something really wrong. But even then, I wouldn't say shame. It's to feel repentant. Yes, repentant, but not shame. Shame's a very negative thing. It's not in God's vocabulary. He doesn't condemn us. And people who are condemned feel shame. God convicts us lovingly and tries to point us in the right direction. And sometimes he does it kind of interesting, like that 12-year-old boy in the suit coming up, "Don't do that again." And I didn't feel shame, I laughed. It's like, "God, you were so good." The way you did that with that boy, I knew it was God. Any other questions? I know we're running out of time. Okay, I'm going to pray and I'm going to minister to you a song of blessing. It's a children's song that I learned in Russia when I was teaching a seminar. I have the people, every break we teach a new song because there are many different churches have different songs. And when I learned that, at the end, I said, we're going to play that song. And the Holy Spirit just came upon the whole class. Everybody was crying. God just ministered to everybody as I spoke and about, overcoming the shame and the things. And so God told me that He anointed me. I used to play guitar, but I had this weird wrist and I could no longer, it would cramp my hand all the time. And so at first I played it with the guitar and I sang. So I'm going to pray for you and I'm going to sing this song over you. I know you all stand when you pray. You're free to do that or to sit down, whatever. But I'm going to walk around the room and sing a song of blessing over you. And I'm trusting God that His Holy Spirit will minister to your heart and break the things, low self-esteem or shame or whatever, away. Would that be all right? Okay. Father God,